Can we start by saying what brought you to Boston? Did you grow up in Boston or did you move to Boston?
No, I was drafted here by the Ministry of Agriculture. The Ministry of Agriculture at the time were concerned about more food production. Just after the war there'd been food shortages and food rationing, so they formed the National Agricultural Advisory Service to encourage farmers and to show farmers how to grow bigger and better crops so that we didn't have to rely on imports so much. So I joined that service and became part of it. So I was drafted here in 1963, and my job was to get the farmers of Holbeach Marsh actually to increase their food production. But we were so successful that by 1971 we'd got wheat mountains and milk lakes, and so the Ministry of Agriculture said enough's enough. Any of you that want redundancy can take it. So I took redundancy at that stage.
So you obviously liked it here to stay.
Oh, absolutely.
And what is it that kept you here, do you think?
Well, I felt that I was part of the community. I liked the place, and I knew a lot of people here, and I felt I'd rather live somewhere for the rest of my career rather than move around the country. And of course I met my wife, and she was I felt very comfortable with my wife, so I took her to the top of the stump, having known her for 3 weeks, and proposed to her.
What made you want to go to civic duties?
Well, I was talking to some friends one day, and we were totally dissatisfied with the way the existing councillors were presenting our case for a better road structure in Boston. We decided the only thing to do about it was to put ourselves up for election, and we found many other people, 32 actually, that were like-minded individuals. So we all put ourselves up for election in 2007, and we found ourselves running the council. So we'd made political history, and it was the first time that anybody had sort of worked from a standing start had run the council, and so we found ourselves running the council, and we were able to make big changes and tell the world that Boston wanted a better infrastructure, and we managed, in fact, to get a debate in Parliament about it.
So Boston, I usually say you come from an agricultural background, so you'll know that Boston's has, that industry creates quite low-wage jobs.
Yeah.
Do you think that causes some of the issues that Boston has?
Well, indeed, I think the population feel a little bit intimidated by what has been happening over the last few years, and that's a pity, really, because we do need that extra workforce. Boston isn't a place of unemployment, but it is a low-wage economy. I think one's got to keep an eye on the future, because I think it will make, in the long run, Boston a very interesting multicultural society, and it'll be all the better for it in the long run. But it does bring these short-term difficulties.
So from the farming communities that Boston was once when you arrived to this multicultural metropolitan type Boston, how do you feel the council is getting from there to the other?
Well, the council's doing all it can to help integration, but I'm afraid it takes time, and there's no easy answer, but we've all got to work towards integrating with our neighbours. There are many things happening. I think the advantage of Boston is that it's some distance away from any other big centre, so people by and large have to make their own entertainment, amusement and life here. They are less reliant on what is provided centrally. There are a lot of organisations in Boston that are prospering perhaps more than in some other areas, but you have to find them, and it's up to the individual to get out there and become involved in them. The native Boston population tends to be a little bit subservient and not to speak out and not to be as active as you would sometimes like them to be. But I would encourage everybody to get involved as much as they can do. But there's a lot of volunteering going on. I mean, we've just won the Gold Award for Boston in Bloom. I mean, that's a wonderful example of volunteers over a period of time, over a period of years, making Boston a better and brighter place.
So, also, would you like to see other businesses encouraged into Boston, and if so, how do you think that could be done?
Well, I think getting the image of the town set in everybody's mind, the image of a town is its most important asset. So it's very important we all work towards getting that image better, brighter and better. And that's why the theme for my mayoral year is Boston, a great past and a bright future.
Here. Yeah. So, and I think for my own children, when they grow up, what is going to be here to keep that the next generation, to stop them from going to cities, and how are we going to keep those young professionals and those new bright young things with all their energy, and how are we going to retain them?
Well, I think quality of life where you live is becoming more important. A lot of people don't like living in a big urban sprawl, and a lot of modern businesses are technology based, and so a place like Boston can offer better quality of life, low cost of living, so I think we needn't be too despondent that Boston will be sidelined and left behind. I think its qualities will be more and more recognised over time.
For you, the past is really important. The cultural history of Boston, that's quite an important thing that we need to be focused.
Oh, absolutely.
Telling the world.
I mean, you come in, you approach Boston, and from miles away you see this magnificent building, the Stump, and you've got to realise that when that was being built, Boston was a boom town, and it was as important as London for exporting wool and other commodities. Huge fortunes were made in Boston, and hence we have got the Stump. So that really is the start, and there's lots of interesting stories, and I think people are interested in them, where they come from and their history. Few people realise that we had our own very own crusade, which was part of our history, and the chap who led that, Henry, he became Henry IV of England. Well, essentially, Boston is an interesting market town. You've only got to go in the marketplace and you think, wow, we've got the best marketplace in the country. It's not part of the urban sprawl to RSPB bird reserves on our doorstep as well. You never need to be at a loss of what to do in the Boston area.
And so for its future, obviously, you want to retain that. You want to retain that nature. You want to retain that little market town that you were saying. Do you not think you might end up losing some of that as it grows? There's a risk.
Yes, there's always that danger to consider, but I think we're going to get less massive developments than other areas, so I'm not fearful at the moment that we're going to lose that feel.
Do you not think Boston needs that development?
Well, it needs it in a sensible way, but we will not. We don't want to it to spread and consume all the surrounding villages. We have got one of the best education systems in the country in Boston at the moment. We've got some great schools, and there was worries that the influx of immigrants would overwhelm that, but in fact, in practice, they are lifting the standards within those schools. So that is a big plus point for immigration. But in conjunction with that, we have some of the best sporting facilities in Eastern England. So if you think about the tennis club, the arrangements for playing golf, football, the PRSA, Princess Royal Sports Arena, and we've got wonderful fishing facilities. So there's, I'm sure we can rightly claim to have some of the best facilities in Eastern England, savings to make in the next few years, and we have made big savings in the last few years.
What effects do you think they're going to have on Boston?
Well, more and more will have to be done by the voluntary sector and by charities and the private sector generally. People are going to have to rely more on their own resources, and the council will be just providing the very basic services like rubbish collection, and probably not a lot more as time goes on, the way the cuts are going.
And obviously Boston isn't an affluent place, and we talked about how we'd like to encourage those businesses. Do you not think that these cuts are going to have that knock-on effect and make it much harder for Boston to get where it wants to be?
Oh yes, yes indeed. We've got to fight even harder to achieve what we want to do, to get the message out there that Boston's a very good place to live and bring up a family.
Do you think that people of Boston are quite understanding of the fact that the council are facing these cuts?
I don't know, that's a difficult one to assess. There will be certainly more and more moans and groans as time goes by, as the cuts bite. No, I think it will stimulate more and more self-help, which perhaps is one good aspect of it.
Okay.
And I think it'll encourage families to help each other even more than they do at the moment.
Sure, I mean, there's one of the criticisms of modern day society is that we've lost that community. We no longer speak to our neighbours and things like this. We don't know who our neighbours are, and that can create a bit of fear and worry. But when I was here when the floods happened, and I saw how people who had never spoken to each other for quite some time were helping each other live safest, and that must have been quite a nice thing for you to see too.
Oh, absolutely, and it's just a good symptom of what the basic life in Boston is, and when needs be, we can work very well together as a community, and the borough is doing all it can to encourage that, and I think that's one reason why we have the Boston Bulletin, which is this daily report which isn't dominated by negative message, that not what can Boston do for me, but what can I do for Boston.